Happy Friday, everybody. Today is March 20th, 2026, and this is your Friday planning video. Now, before I get started, I wanted to remind you that I don't give personal tax advice, but this is also a great time to remind you that connecting your whole team, the tax advisor, the legal advisor, and myself, is one of the ways we keep the plans on track. Now, I want to start today by clearing something up because this causes confusion every single year. March is not the end of tax filing. April 15th is still the official tax deadline. But for most people, March feels like the finish line because in order to file comfortably and on time, most accountants need your information by around March 15th. So while tax season isn't technically over, this is the point where the paperwork rush starts to fade and clarity begins to show up. And that's exactly why this moment matters so much from a planning perspective. Why is this actually the best planning window? One of the biggest misconceptions I see every year is the idea that once tax documents are handed in, the window's closed. They couldn't be more wrong. In reality, most meaningful planning happens right now because the numbers are finally clear, not estimates, not projections, reality. You now know what income actually showed up, what savings really happened, what deductions mattered, and what didn't move the needle at all. Now, before filing, everything's fuzzy. At this point, the fog starts to lift, and planning works best when we're not guessing. Filing is a deadline, not a conclusion. Here's an important reframe. Filing your tax return is a compliance event. Planning is an ongoing process. Your CPA's role is accuracy and compliance, and that work is essential. But planning lives in a different lane. Planning connects income to lifestyle, cash flow to behavior, short-term decisions to long-term goals. That work doesn't end when the documents are submitted. In many ways, it finally becomes possible. What is the cost of waiting? Here's the planning mistake I see far more often than missing deductions. People wait. They say, I just want a break from thinking about all that money. I'll deal with this after tax season. I'll circle back later in the year. And that makes sense. Tax season is draining. But here's what happens when you wait too long. Life speeds up, summer shows up, schedules fill, and suddenly it's fall and decisions feel urgent again. Urgency is the enemy of good planning. Good planning needs room to think. That room exists right now. Even though filing deadlines are still ahead, planning isn't about deductions, it's about decisions. Tax planning isn't about chasing write-offs. It's about structuring decisions. How is your income timed? How savings are priorities? How charitable giving is coordinated? How retirement, business, and cash flow decisions all fit together? March is the moment when these conversations are easiest because there's clarity, but not yet pressure. That combination doesn't last long. Build a rhythm, not a scramble. This is also the perfect time to build a planning rhythm, not a giant checklist, not once a year overhaul. A rhythm. When do we review our cash flow? When do we revisit our savings, adjust assumptions before the year-end pressure shows up? Because flexibility shrinks as the year goes on. Options narrow, decisions get rushed, everything becomes reactive. Post-document, pre-deadline season is where foresight lives. Let's talk about closing the loop. Tax filing will officially wrap up in April, but planning doesn't wait for the deadline. This is the moment to use clarity while time is still on your side. Tax season closed the book on last year. Now we get to write the next chapter intentionally. Next week, we're going to zoom out even further. We're going to talk about how taxes fit into the bigger life planning picture and why they shouldn't be the driver. Have a great weekend and keep planning.